Hey there, my name is Victoria. I am a certified birth doula, a childbirth educator, a mom of three, and I believe that expecting moms and dads can be transformed into confident parents with great education and great support. That's what I'm here to do. I also believe that when our community thrives, parents will thrive. And that's why I'm really interested in being a positive force in the birth world, in the birth community, and just making helpful contributions that lift everyone else up. So, I'm excited today to introduce you to this new series on YouTube called Walk Through a Birth. Now, this is going to be a little different from some of the birth blogs you might have seen, even professional like doulas or OBGYNs reviewing a birth vlog. This is really more of like a case study. So, I've composited, as you'll see, I've made up kind of a labor timeline based on some real events that I've seen over the years. I'm even taking, in this case, these are photos from some different births because I had a few things that I really wanted to show to tell this story. So this is a composite. This is not a true story that happened that I know of, at least. It's just something I made up out of my own head. And the reason is because sometimes there's just some unique struggles in a birth situation, and I think it's helpful to be able to break that down. So we're going to go through this slideshow. I'm going to be narrating what's happening in this birth that I've made up for us to discuss and talk about some of the things that you might expect as a parent or as a birth professional. So if you are a birth professional, stick around to the end. I'm going to ask you to contribute in the comments some of your observations and thoughts, what you might have done differently, what you really liked that was done, and we'll have a conversation that way. So enjoy.
Hello and welcome to a Motherwell Doula Masterclass. This is Walking Through a Birth. Today's birth is going to be an unmedicated hospital birth. It included early admission to the hospital, as well as the unique challenge of no hydrotherapy being available. And a quick note before we get started, this birth is going to be depicted through a series of photographs because I had some unique elements that I wanted to discuss. The photographs are not all from the exact same birth. So you will notice the pregnant person might look a little bit different in photos. That's, of course, because it is different people. However, just stay with the flow of the story. We're keeping the flow and the spirit of the account at hand. And I'm hoping that the photographs are just going to visually describe the birth story we're trying to tell. And in telling, if you're a parent listening to this or a birth professional, the hope is that you're going to get a sense of how a real live birth might unfold and some of the options that are available in that scenario. So again, this is a composite birth experience. This is not a single birth, and the events and details in this are purely made up from my own imagination. I'm pulling together real life stories that I've seen and heard in my work as a doula. So let's get going. So about 6 p.m. on Tuesday night, our mom notices that she might be in early labor. She's not quite sure. She has some intermittent tightening in her abdomen and some discomfort. She does text her birth doula and lets her know that she feels a little bit different today. And so she and the doula talked, and mom decided to take an Epsom salt bath and try to get some sleep. So indecision in early labor and kind of being unsure, feeling funny, but not quite sure why. That is all really common early labor signs. And exactly what happened here is really the best thing to do. Birth workers have lots of different ways of expressing this idea, but the idea is rest as long as you can. Pretend like you're not in labor for as long as you can. Something people commonly say is do life until you can't but labor. So even if you do have contractions, and this is the thing, as a birth doula, moms text me very often in the last weeks of pregnancy. I noticed I had a contraction today. Is this labor? That kind of thing. A good childbirth class could prepare you for this as well, but it's just good for everyone to know. Braxton Hicks, as they're called, which are just any contraction or sensation you feel that's not active labor, where your cervix is dilating, your body is changing, and your baby is coming. Any of those contractions are very normal to feel in the end of pregnancy. I don't love calling them Braxton Hicks. I don't even love calling them false labor. I prefer to just call them practice contractions or warm-up contractions. Your uterus is a muscle, and just like you would tone up for a workout, that's exactly what your body's doing here. Thankfully, mom was able to get some sleep after talking with her doula. She knew it was okay to just get some rest and see what happened. But around 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, mom wakes up with a contraction and her water very clearly breaks. And now we know that it is not common for your water to break before intensive contractions or waves are happening, but it does happen. About 1 or 2 out of every 10 people will have this. It's called PROM, which stands for premature rupture of membranes. So when your water releases before you're in what we would consider active labor, textbook definition is past 6 centimeters. Any birth worker you talk to would prefer to just call active labor like when you're in the zone, contractions are coming frequently, consistently, you have a long established pattern. You might hear 411 or 511. The contractions are every 4 minutes apart or 5 minutes apart, lasting for a minute. That's going on for an hour. But any birth worker will tell you, you can just see active labor. You'll know people are in the zone. So sometimes in the movies, it seems like water breaks and then immediately you go to that intensive place. Most often, very often, that's not the case. But in this mom's case, her water breaks. She's not having strong contractions, but certainly anytime your water breaks, that is a reason to alert your care team. So she calls her doula and midwife, and then mom does notice she has some stronger, more noticeable contractions. They're increasing in intensity. But labor really is more gradual than a lot of people think it is in its development. So while she's noticing these, they're not overtaking her. She has one, a couple minutes past, she has another, but they're strong when she has them. So a lot of times parents might decide to stay home during this time. However, this mom has 2 situations. One is that she lives far away from her hospital. And number 2, she is GBS positive, group B strep positive, and she wants to get an antibiotic round at least 4 hours before birth. So she decides to go in. So about 4 a.m., we're heading to the hospital. Let's say maybe mom gathered some things together, just tried to get a little more rest, took a second to breathe, and then headed on in. She puts her headphones in. During the car ride, she sits in the front seat with her husband, and they just make their way to the hospital kind of quietly in the dark of the night. About 5:30 a.m., they arrive at the hospital. The triage does confirm that her water broke. It was amniotic fluid. That process can be done very simply to check amniotic fluid. It's really a long Q-tip, basically, that they would insert lightly into your vagina to get that water, that fluid, to test what it is. And sure enough, we can tell if it's amniotic fluid. However, mom does decline a cervical check. So a full-on cervical check would be a gloved provider's or nurse's hand going into your vagina up to your cervix. Mom doesn't want that, because she knows that she's at an increased risk of infection with her waters breaking, right? Hence the antibiotics. So she doesn't want to introduce any potential new infections. She does get monitored we call this an NST, a non-stress test, for 20 minutes on admission. She gets her initial antibiotics, but unfortunately, because she's GBS positive, the hospital says that she cannot use the tub room mom was really hoping to use. Mom is not sure if it's evidence-based or not to not have hydrotherapy as an option, but she doesn't want to rock the boat because she really is hoping for an upright position and to avoid an epidural. So she agrees to decline the tub, and her team is already prepared with some ways. They knew this could be a possibility, so they're already prepared with some ways to help her manage her comfort level. So around 6 a.m., let's say the doula arrives. She begins setting up that hospital room in a calm environment. Maybe she has some twinkle lights and some affirmations that she helps hang up. Some doulas or families like to bring essential oils, whether that's just in a diffuser or a little washcloth that can easily be removed. The smell becomes too much in labor. So doula's there setting up, and mom starts processing. She is really disappointed she couldn't stay home longer, but she's hopeful that her labor is going to continue once she gets nice and comfy. So the whole team begins walking around the halls to get these contractions and waves stronger and closer together. Mom really does want to avoid medication, so she doesn't want to use Pitocin to augment or speed up her labor. And you notice in this position, the mom and doula have really high knees. They're doing kind of like duck walks up and down the hall. Anytime we can move the pelvis kind of in equal proportion, but use kind of big exaggerated moves sometimes really skillfully can help that baby have a lot of room in the pelvis to move down and again to get contractions starting. Mom does notice that when they're walking, contractions do increase in intensity. She does need to stop the walks around the hall. She can't talk through the contractions when she has one. So after shift change, maybe let's say that the parents kind of walk around through shift change. At about 8 a.m., after shift change has happened at 7, the parents come back to the room. Mom snacks on a spread that her partner has laid out of food she's eating and drinking as she's comfortable. A nurse says it's time to monitor and check on the babies, since it's been longer than a hospital would usually go without a check. Mom does actually not want to go back to the NST. She does not want to put those strips on, even though the hospitals would prefer that. And instead, she asked for a Doppler. Her provider, a midwife, as you see here, is totally on board with that, but only when the midwife is on the floor. She has to go to clinic later in the day, and midwife says, while I'm here, I can come in with my Doppler, but as soon as I need to go back to the clinic, I would ask you to return to the monitors so we can have a strip, as they'll call it. Again, mom isn't totally sure. She would prefer to just be able to be Doppler monitored the whole time, but these are the options she has. They make a plan. Throughout this whole labor, every 4 hours, mom returns to IV antibiotics being administered due to her GBS status. So every 4 hours, mom is going to be hooked up to the IV pole. This is kind of uncomfortable for mom. She really doesn't love needles. And so dad holds her hand each time that procedure needs to happen, each time that medication needs to be given to help comfort and calm her. And they work through it that way. You see here, the family is in a really lovely upright position. Doula is pressing on mom's back. Dad is at her head, giving some words of encouragement, calming things down. And the mom is resting. It looks like she's on hands and knees, and she's leaning over a birth ball for support. Here's another example of mom being monitored with a Doppler by, let's say, like the midwife, the provider, intermittently this whole time, which is wonderful. So between 8:45 and 11:30 a.m. on this Wednesday morning, it's pretty standard. Mom is just alternating through positions to cope with contractions as they occur, resting with support in between. Earlier she was on her hands and knees leaning over a ball. It looks like now she's standing up leaning over a ball. Though her contractions have continued, the pattern has remained the same. So she's still having pretty intensive contractions, every 4 minutes or so, but they're staying right there. Nothing new is happening. So at 11:45, usually whenever we have a labor that's going on a little bit long without a noticeable change, so let's say a couple hours, not a whole lot, is looking different, something that can be helpful is a check to see what's going on in your cervix. And the mom does consent to a cervical check. She also kind of wants to know where she might be in the process because she's doing a lot of hard work, but it seems like the same hard work for a long time. The midwife offers to check her cervix. She's 6 centimeters. So mom feels very overwhelmed and discouraged by this news. She begins to cry. Her contractions are taking a lot longer than she thought. They are more intense than she thought. And mom wishes she could just still be at home. She starts talking repeatedly about, I wish I was just still at home. I don't want to be here. And so she needs a lot of support. You see here the headphones are still really helpful for mom. Holding hands, having all the support around her. So at 12:30, the mom moves to a bathroom labor cave. These are wonderful ways to use that ensuite bathroom in most hospital rooms. The doula sets up the bathroom. She brings in some soft battery-powered and outlet plug lighting. She brings in some pillows so mom can rest her head. There's a chair positioned right across from the toilet for the partner to sit on or to prop a birth ball for that more support with leaning. She also brings in some granola bars and water so mom can stay nourished and hydrated. You see here we've got some birth affirmations. Perhaps you move some of those into the room and just let it be. So from 12:45 to about 2, that's where mom hangs out. The midwife does come in intermittently as promised to check heart tones. And mom and partner just continue laboring in that labor cave. The doula and partner do take some small breaks to eat and drink. Mom sometimes sits on the toilet. Sometimes she's standing and swaying. And again, the midwife is still on the floor, so she's able to come in periodically and take those heart tones. In the bathroom, we do notice a change. So mom's contractions again kind of go up in intensity. She begins to feel nauseous and shaky. But at 2 p.m., the midwife needs to lead to the clinic, and we know mom is getting tired. So mom stays in that bathroom and labor cave until the very last minute, until it's time to check the baby again. So mom stays in that bathroom until the very last minute. She does not want to come out until she absolutely has to. So once the midwife leaves to go to clinic, mom does agree to get back on the monitors for that 20 minutes of monitoring. She has alternating positions. Again, right now she's sitting on a birth ball and leaning over the bed, but she is really uncomfortable. So sometimes mom is tired and she just wants to lay down, and it can take a lot of support for that mom to be in bed. She might need a lot of hip rubbing, massaging, kind of hot or cold on her hips or belly, whatever's hurting, foot rubs. Sometimes just if mom really is tired and just wants to rest, there's just a lot more physical work that usually needs to be done with the care team. Although sometimes labor is so intense that it really is not comfortable to lay down. And in that case, that's when you'll see more things like this. Mom sitting on a birth ball, leaning over the bed. You can raise up the back of the hospital bed, as we'll see later, and lean over that. So dad and doula are alternating between providing this care for mom's needs. You see here mom is just sitting. You see that screen in the background. So say she's still attached, connected to the monitors just for a quick check. Dad's leaning over the bed himself, getting some rest, and doula is rubbing the mom's head and neck. Here's another great picture of what a really relaxed mom looks like. This even is during a contraction. We notice that doula is providing hip squeezes in the background. So that would mean that even in contractions, even in the middle of a wave, mom can still be calm, her face relaxed, and just trying to get some deep rest, really knowing that she's got a lot of help around her and she can find this zone to conserve her energy for the rest of labor. So 2 hours after that, about 4 p.m., mom begins to feel pushy, which is exciting. We love this in labor. She was nauseous earlier. That nausea does turn to vomiting, and suddenly no position is comfortable for her. Mom is moving around frequently as she desires, and she begins grunting on the contraction. So mom cannot really sit still, and she is like really feeling a little bit crazy. A lot of times when this happens, we might put, cold rag on top of the mom's head or the back of the neck to help with the nausea. That's what's happening here. So around 4:30, our midwife comes back. She checks, and sure enough, mom is 10 centimeters. So those signs of kind of a really quick instant change in labor where suddenly nothing is working for mom, no coping mechanism or comfort measure that was working earlier in labor. Sometimes those stop being as effective as they were. Usually moms will get very active in their movement and changing positions. One position is not comfortable anymore. They just go through lots of positions. That moaning, groaning, grunting on the top of the contraction, as well as being nauseous or vomiting. That's all very common. Transition. Apparently being in that labor cave was really helpful, right? Mom kind of went in with contractions steady, but not really changing. And she came out in transition and heading into pushing. So about 4:30, this midwife comes back in. Mom is 10 centimeters, and she encourages mom to push on her own urges. Mom begins pushing while lying on her side. You see the headphones have been helpful this whole time, holding on to her partner's hand. A lot of times people might grip the side rail of the hospital bed as well. In any variation of that, something with a handle is just often really helpful. About 5 p.m., mom no longer wants to really lie down. She flips over to the back of the bed. Then she gets tired leaning over the bed and pushing. The doula and nurse work together to set up a squat bar. This works really well for mom, and she continues pushing in that position. Again, mom she's tired. She's getting worn out. So the doula ties a sheet to that squat bar to give mom additional support. Dad and doula give mom sips of water and honey stick in between kind of each push. They're alternating, offering those beverages and foods to her. And there's, you can see there that cloth that's tied to the squat bar. A lot of times people like leaning over the whole squat bar. Sometimes they like sitting upright, and pushing, but then laying back in between. And that cloth or a sheet scarf, whatever you have on hand over the squat bar can give you some of that leverage and ability to rest, but then easily pull yourself back up. And then there's a picture of that mom leaning over the bed, like we mentioned, doing some pushing. And then finally, the baby is born. You see, this is a really great picture of the head being born. Looks like we have a nuchal cord, which is where the cord is just up around the baby's neck. Typically, that's not an issue. For most babies are going to be born just fine. Providers will slip that out at the appropriate time. And then at 6:15, our baby's born. This mom and this family did great. Really great care team. Great job working together, and great job navigating less than ideal, birth situations. Many times in America, we're going to have a birth environment that's not as idyllic as you would hope, not as evidence-based as you would hope. But with some perseverance and a really good support team around you, having lots of options, babies can be born just as joyfully as anywhere. So thank you for walking through a birth with me.
So what did you think? If you're a birth worker, have you encountered any of these scenarios before? Did you think anything could have been prevented or handled differently? I would love to know. Let's have that conversation in the comments. If you're a parent, how would you feel if this was your birth? What are some things you can imagine doing or that you would want your team to do to help you be comfortable and navigate some of the situations that came up in this birth? I would love to have those conversations in the comments. Feel free to let me know what you think, your experiences, and we'll have a conversation there. In the meantime, I want to tell you about the Motherwell. So the Motherwell is my online shop. You can go to motherwelldoula.com/shop. There will be links in the description, of course. And there I have several resources for parents and birth professionals to help make birth be the best it can be. In particular, I want to let you know about a course called How to Get the Most from Comfort Measures in Labor Positions in the Hospital. So if you're watching this class and you're like, oh yeah, I want that to happen at my birth. I want to move and group in all those positions. What do I do? That class is a great way to get you started. It's only $10. Or if you're a birth professional, or particularly a nurse or a midwife or a doctor, and you don't actually have a lot of experience helping people move around in labor, that will give you some tips and tricks from my perspective. It's a course that I put together originally for some medical students. And so they had really great things to say about it. And I thought I would make it available to others. So I'll see you at the Motherwell shop and also in the comments.